All right. I feel like what I'm going to talk about is the projector and the invitation, but we'll see. As you know, I ramble, I meander, I don't go linearly. So let's see what comes out. But this is because I've been watching posts on Instagram, things on YouTube, things human design related, and I see so much back and forth about projectorness and what it is to be a projector, through the lens of human design, and what it means about the invitation and what it means about what you can and cannot do. And I don't know, like a little bit I get a little bit annoyed with the debate because the whole point of it is human design is not a set of rules, and it's just simply a map. It's a finger pointing at the moon. It's not the moon. It's a finger pointing at the moon. It's like, it's as legitimate as you experiment and test it to be. And that's it. There is no other legitimacy to it except for what you discover on your own. And it's a map that helps you discover your own territory. And the crux of it is discovering the territory, which is yourself, and the way that you fit into life and navigate life. And so, yeah, I mean, I guess I see sometimes people, who talk about, kind of the rigid rules of being a projector, and the the fact that there's not a lot of energy that's available for working hours on end, being very stimulated or hyper connected into things. And then I see other people who are like, don't limit yourself, projectors. Those are rules that you're not bound by. Like, if people say that you can only work 4 or 5 hours a day, that's not true. You can do it. And to me, the debate it doesn't even make sense, because it's all about what do you individually find your energy is available for or not. What is the way that you find that you naturally show up? And there can be times I would say, let's look macro. There can be times in your life where there is energy available for a whole lot more. And then there's other times where there's not a lot available for very much. And then we can go even micro, where it's like, this week there's more available, next week there's less, or even micro, like today or this hour there's more, and the next hour there's less. And there's there's an inconsistency to it. If you have an undefined sacral, there is inconsistency in the way that your energy moves, ebbs and flows. And the inconsistency is even a word that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because it's comparing to consistency. And consistency is this idealized thing that is invented by a society that's based on production. That was a society based on, if we go back and look at the Industrial Revolution, you need to work X amount of hours a day. And to me, it's null and void. It's like, it doesn't even make any sense. I mean, that's me looking from my point of view, where I don't live in the context of a job that requires me to be on, checking, whatever it's called, clocking in at X time and clocking out at X time. Of course, there are people that are in that context, and I can't really speak to that because I haven't lived in that context for a long, long time. But, if you do have the space in your life to just really experiment with how your energy naturally ebbs and flows, there's no blueprint that works for everybody. And that's whether you're a projector, a generator, a manifestor, it doesn't matter. It's like energy input and output. It's all unique. And what is available and what works for one person is so different than another person. And it's so different even for that same person, as I said before, from season to season. And depending on, I mean, there's life cycles that influence that you'll be more available for things or less available. And like right now for me, I see that how my natural availability is very selective, and even more so right now as physically I'm not well. And so what I have available, what I feel available for in terms of connection with others is so limited compared to the way I was living some years ago. But also the way I was living some years ago was way above my true capacity, and it was killing me. So, the experiment is like, if you kind of find the way that you can surrender into your own naturalness, what happens in an organic way? And what I see is that, for me, the strategy of a projector of waiting for the invitation, for me, the way I see it right now in my personal experiment, and I'm 6 years in, is, and so it could change. I could change the way I say this, take it with a grain of salt. I'm a 1-3, I'm digging in and I'm trying and error, and this is just where I am in my process. But the way I see it is the strategy is secondary for me to the authority. And that is quite contrary to what I hear a lot of people saying, like, you need to go with strategy first and then the authority. Well, for me, no, because, the strategy of waiting for invitation is like, what context does that fit in? Well, I had to first, for me, find the way that I naturally move day to day without connection with others, which is where invitation comes in, is connecting into others, right? Being invited into a relationship, being invited into work, being invited into connection. So how do I move hour by hour, moment by moment? Well, for me, that's my authority. And according to the human design map, my authority is splenic. But when I discovered when I started looking more into variables and cognition, I find I connect into cognition as being my authority. Right now, that's how I experience it. It's like, for me, it's my inner vision is my cognition. And so I personally have been living more by my inner vision moment by moment. And then I watch how that informs me on not just moment by moment, but on, the micro, but then the macro. And so I see where I'm in contexts where it's about connection and where the theme of invitation could come up. I see how I'm naturally waiting for recognition, which is what I resonate more with than invitation. Like, for me, it's primordial. The recognition is like, is there a space for me? Is something in me being recognized here? Do I recognize that I'm recognized? That's the thing. Do I recognize something in here that recognizes me? Is there something in the tuning fork sound of this context that attunes to my tuning fork that's inside? And if there is, then there's a space for my voice, for my being, for something. I don't really know what. But if I don't find that space, if I don't feel that space, then I see that there's nothing for me to say or do. And that's kind of what's more natural for me, is to like, and I always come back to this for my particular design. I find that I start with silence and stillness, and then I wait to see and feel into where I recognize that I'm recognized. And that essentially is an energetic key that turns on an ignition. And then there can be energy available. And the energy was coming from the context. So, I hope in some way this can make logical sense to whoever is listening and potentially experimenting with the information of being a projector, of invitation, of recognition, of inner authority. And it's not, I don't find that it's something that's immediate. Like, if you come across this information, it is a matter of how are you going to get your hands dirty with the information? And in doing that, like, find, and I'm speaking as a line 3, you find what doesn't work, and then you find what starts to work, and this doesn't work over here. So yeah, experiment with like throwing yourself into everything, and then experiment with throwing yourself into nothing. I mean, experiment with the extremes. Why not? And slowly start to find the middle ground of like what feels natural for you. And so me personally, I find it difficult to, if I were to speak to directly to another projector, to tell them, do this, don't do this, do this. No, I mean, do what you sense in that moment that is the right thing for you to do. And it might be the very wrong right thing. Like, it might be right to do the wrong thing, because you got to feel it. You got to feel in your body what that rejection feels like. You got to feel what that non-recognition feels like, as a contrast to what it feels like inside when there is recognition, when there is that attunement, when there is that sense of somebody seeing your gifts, or seeing that you have something to bring to the table. And maybe those are enough words. But in essence, I just feel that so much of the debate, so to speak, is moot. Like, any rules or regulations or standards or anything are all going to have to be homogenized. But that's the antithesis of what human design is talking about, which is individuation, which is uniqueness. And so, yes, there's sort of some generalizations you can talk about being a projector, but I mean, I'm a projector with no motors. It's really different from a projector with motors. And I'm a projector with no motors that has a spleen and a G center. Well, there's projectors that only have a G center, or only have a spleen, or only have a mental definition and no motors. So those are all very different. And then, then the emotional projector, well, that's totally different from me. And then you've got, someone like me that's single definition. Well, the way that I process is so different from somebody who's a split, and a wide split, or just a simple split, or a triple split, or a quadruple split. Like, all of those things add nuances to the way somebody's going to process what's coming in, the frequencies, the energies, the information, the people, the places that are coming in, and process that, and then know where they fit in that. And so essentially it all comes back to finding little by little your way that is led through body sensation, where the body is moving towards or away, where the body, rings with a frequency that is resonant to whatever it's the connection opportunity is, or doesn't. And learning little by little to trust it, even though the mind will rail against whatever the body is doing, because the mind will just do that, because the mind thinks it knows, based on all the information it's gleaned over the years and years of being conditioned this way, that way, and the other way. It's trying to use all that information to make a diagnostic and a prognostic of what's happening and where you're going. And then there's the body, which just exists in space and time and moves in its own way. And so essentially it's like, as a projector, how does your body resonate with recognition, recognizing, being recognized? And in that way, feeling into where there's invitation or not, through recognition and through however you relate to your inner authority, as guiding moment by moment. And yeah, so coming kind of a full circle around, that's why for me, like, authority is more important than strategy, because as a projector, the strategy in human design, you may not come across invitation so often, but every day there is moment by moment. When do I wake up? When do I get up? When do I brush my teeth? When do I eat? Do I eat? What do I eat? When do I get to whatever supposed responsibilities I have? Do I get to them? When do I connect? Do I answer the phone? Do I not answer the phone? I mean, just the moment by moment living. It's like there's, for me, human design could only make sense if there was something in there that pointed to me, how do I live moment by moment, and not just invitation by invitation. And then the muscle memory of living moment by moment is taken into when an invitation actually arrives, which means when does a connection actually present itself. Yeah, for what it's worth, I share that and, ongoing learning. So I might say something different in a few months or next year or whatever. But at this point, this is what I've been feeling. And this is where I am in my experiment with this information. And if you have something different, that's perfectly normal because you're different. So whatever I say, again, is just a finger pointing at something, and don't pay attention to the finger, look at the something. Or, it's breadcrumbs, but it's not the real cake. They're just, it's not the piece of bread. It's just breadcrumbs that could hopefully lead you to your bread. So take what makes sense and resonates and that you recognize as something, that sings inside you as, oh, that's, yeah, something there. And if it's not, then just throw it away. And that's completely legitimate because that's what I do with stuff. Throw it away if it's not for me. And what is for me will process inside me in its own unique way. And that's all for now.